Think about the last time you negotiated for something used online.
Oh, that's always stressful.
Right. You find the listing, you check the price, and almost instantly, your heart rate just ticks up a fraction.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's this inherent expectation of combat. The assumption is that you are stepping into a zero-sum arena where the seller wants to empty your wallet, and, well, your objective is to aggressively chip away at their asking price.
You're bracing for an argument before you even type a word.
Exactly. But today's deep dive is going to look at this microscopic, it's a 178-word transcript of a completely mundane transaction.
Buying a used laptop.
Right, buying a laptop.
Yeah.
And it flips that entire combative script completely on its head.
It really does. We're looking at a clinical 6-step interaction between a buyer named Rahul and a seller named Amit. And when you strip away the everyday casualness of their messages, what you are left with is a highly precise demonstration of behavioral economics. Yeah, it illustrates how to actively bypass human defense mechanisms rather than, triggering them right out of the gate.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the baseline psychology of the listing itself. So Amit, the seller, has posted this laptop for $800.
Right.
Rahul initiates contact with a very standard check. He says, "Hi, I saw your listing for the laptop at $800. Is it still available?"
Amit confirms it is.
Yeah, Amit says yes, and adds that it's in, quote, excellent condition, barely used. So the board is set. We have a stated price, and we have the seller's stated valuation of the item.
The dynamic here is crucial because of something called the endowment effect.
Okay, what's that?
Well, when Amit lists that laptop, he isn't just picking a number out of thin air. He owns the item, which means he naturally overvalues it.
Oh, because it's his.
Exactly. His ego is already subtly attached to that $800 figure. If a buyer comes in hot with a blunt demand, they say something like, "I'll give you $600," they aren't just attacking the math. They are inadvertently attacking the seller's judgment.
Which immediately triggers a threat response. If I post something online and your first message tells me my valuation is absurd, my biological instinct is not to compromise with you.
No, not at all.
My instinct is to dig my heels in, cross my arms, and, prove you wrong. I might even just ignore you entirely.
That's the amygdala taking over. The negotiation instantly becomes a conflict of status rather than a simple transaction of goods.
But Rahul avoids that trap completely in his very next message. This is where the contrast between common mistakes and calculated strategy becomes so clear. Because most people would just throw out a lowball number and brace for the rejection.
Right, they just say $700, take it or leave it.
Exactly. Instead, Rahul says, "I noticed similar models online for around $700. Can you help me understand what makes yours worth $800?
What's fascinating here is the specific mechanic at play. The buyer is asking for justification rather than attacking.
Yeah, it's so subtle.
By framing the lower price as an observation about the market and asking for help understanding the difference, Rahul completely short-circuits Amit's defensive posture.
I see this as the difference between acting like a detective versus a cross-examining lawyer.
Ooh, I like that comparison.
Right. If I'm a lawyer pointing a finger at you, aggressively declaring that your laptop isn't worth the asking price, well, you fight back.
Naturally.
But if I'm a detective and I casually open my notebook and say, "Help me piece this together. I'm seeing 700 over here, but you're at 800. Walk me through it," we are suddenly looking at the problem together.
You're on the same side of the table.
Exactly. I'm actively inviting you to be the expert.
And that framing forces a cognitive shift in the seller. Instead of fighting you, they have to do the work of actively articulating the value of their item.
They have to sell it.
Right. They have to sell it to you all over again, which, paradoxically, commits them deeper into the conversation.
But let me posit a theory here, because Rahul isn't just asking an innocent question. He very intentionally drops that $700 number into the mix.
He does.
He says, "I noticed similar models online for around 700. My read is that he is actively dragging the anchor down before Amit even has a chance to formulate a defense.
Yeah.
Is this a calculated anchoring technique disguised as a question?
Oh, absolutely. It is the definition of a velvet anchor.
A velvet anchor.
Yeah. So the cognitive bias of anchoring relies on the gravitational pull of the first number introduced into a negotiation. Amit tried to set the initial anchor at 800.
Right.
Rahul politely tosses out a $700 counter anchor. If he had used a hard anchor like, I will only pay $700, Amit's brain would reject it as an unreasonable demand.
Because it triggers that threat response.
Exactly. But because the $700 figure is wrapped in genuine curiosity, it slips right past Amit's psychological defenses.
The polite tone ensures the conversation doesn't die in its tracks, but the $700 number is now firmly planted in Amit's head.
He can't unhear it.
The entire gravitational center of the deal just shifted downwards, and Amit didn't even feel it happen.
We see the effectiveness of that velvet anchor in Amit's immediate response, too. Because the inquiry was collaborative, Amit provides a completely rational defense of his price tag.
What does he say?
He replies, "Good question. This one has upgraded RAM and comes with original accessories. Plus, it's still under warranty."
He steps right into the role of the expert, just like the detective analogy suggests. He lists the features and justifies his position without a hint of hostility.
The interaction remains entirely frictionless, but the baseline has fundamentally changed.
Right.
Amit is no longer dictating a price, he is actively negotiating the value.
Conceptually, this brings us to the next massive hurdle in any negotiation, moving the price without triggering the seller's ego.
Yes, this is the tricky part.
And this is where we see a fascinating pivot from Rahul. He replies to Amit's defense by saying, "That's helpful. I do value the warranty." And only after saying that, he drops his actual target number. He says, "Still, my budget is closer to $720. Is there any flexibility?"
The source material explicitly flags this maneuver. The buyer reveals a constraint, not a demand.
A constraint.
Right. The psychological chasm between a constraint and a demand is the difference between a successful deal and a blown negotiation.
Let's break down why that is. To me, framing it as "my budget is this" feels like creating a scapegoat.
A scapegoat? How so?
Well, the budget becomes a third party in the room. It's the bad guy holding the deal back, not Rahul's personal stubbornness.
That is a highly accurate way to view it. A demand is a direct statement of human will. I refuse to pay more than $720.
Right, it's confrontational.
When humans encounter a statement of will that opposes their own, the natural response is to push back to maintain agency. It becomes a contest to see who will blink first.
The classic standoff. I won't pay it.
Well, I won't sell it to you.
Exactly.
By using a budget constraint, Rahul completely removes his own ego from the equation. He isn't saying he refuses to meet Amit's price. The implication is that he physically cannot meet it.
Or like his hands are tied.
Right. He is communicating, "I really want to buy your excellent laptop, but this external limitation is holding me back."
Which preserves Amit's agency.
Precisely. Amit doesn't feel like he is bowing to Rahul's demands. He feels like he is helping Rahul solve a budget problem.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Before Rahul introduces that budget constraint, he goes out of his way to validate Amit's defense.
He does.
He says, "That's helpful. I do value the warranty."
Yeah.
He literally tells the seller, "You are right, and your item has the value you claim it does."
Yeah.
It seems incredibly counterintuitive to agree with the person whose price you're actively trying to lower.
It feels counterintuitive if you view negotiations strictly as a math problem. But if you view it as a behavioral puzzle, it makes perfect sense. This taps into the powerful social principle of reciprocity.
Reciprocity, right.
Amit just took the time to explain the RAM, the accessories, and the warranty. If Rahul had ignored that and just bluntly stated his budget, Amit would feel unheard.
He'd feel like his effort was entirely dismissed. And dismissed people do not make financial concessions.
Exactly. Validating the seller's points buys psychological goodwill. When Amit feels heard and respected, he feels a subconscious, deeply ingrained social obligation to be reasonable in return.
Ah, I see.
And Rahul spends that accumulated goodwill the very next second by asking for flexibility on the price.
And the math of the transcript proves the strategy works flawlessly. Amit immediately responds to the budget constraint by saying, "I understand, but $720 is a bit low for me. I could consider $770.
Notice how the brackets of the entire negotiation have now shifted.
Totally. The $800 asking price is effectively erased from reality. The new playing field is trapped entirely between Rahul's stated constraint of $720 and Amit's new counteroffer of $770.
Yeah.
They are negotiating within a $50 window that is significantly lower than where they started just 3 messages ago.
And Amit felt comfortable making a $30 concession because he didn't feel attacked.
The collaborative environment.
Right. That environment Rahul established allowed Amit to lower his price without feeling like he was losing face.
So, we have a $50 gap. The tension is high, the deal is close, but someone has to give ground.
Someone always does.
And the most common mistake people make at this exact moment is the lazy compromise.
Yeah.
They just offer to split the difference and hope for the best.
Let's meet in the middle at 7:45.
Right. But Rahul doesn't rely on simple math to close the gap. He introduces a completely different variable.
He shifts the currency of the negotiation. Our source notes identify this final maneuver as attaching a conditional offer to urgency.
Rahul's message is, if we can settle at $750, I can make the payment today.
It's brilliant.
It seems to me like he is weaponizing the seller's fatigue. I mean, anyone who has sold anything online knows the mental exhaustion of dealing with the marketplace. Is Rahul essentially trading convenience for cash?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how human beings value resources, time, and cognitive load are often just as valuable as marginal financial gains.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about Amit's current state. The laptop is sitting in his house, the listing is active, he has to monitor his inbox, filter out flaky buyers, coordinate schedules.
So much hassle.
All of that requires mental bandwidth.
It's an open loop in his brain that he just wants to close.
Exactly. When Amit makes his counteroffer of $770, he is holding out for $20 more than Rahul's eventual offer of $750.
Right.
In a vacuum, $20 is $20. But Rahul attaches the condition of immediate, guaranteed resolution. I can make the payment today.
He puts a bird in the hand.
He introduces tangible momentum into a process that is usually defined by waiting and uncertainty.
So Amit is no longer making a logical choice between $750 and $770.
I know.
He is making an emotional choice between a guaranteed hassle-free transaction right this very second versus the mere possibility of getting his target price from some unknown, potentially difficult buyer next week.
And the perceived value of that $20 difference shrinks dramatically when placed next to the relief of finalizing the task.
The urgency creates a sudden rush toward closure.
And it works.
It does. Amit accepts the lower price. But I want to analyze the exact wording of Amit's final message, because he doesn't just type yes.
No, he adds a little twist.
Rahul says, if we can settle at $750, I can make the payment today. And Amit replies, all right, $750 works if you pick it up today.
That tiny little addition, if you pick it up today, is a brilliant example of how humans process concession. It is a micro-condition.
But why does Amit feel the need to add that? He's getting paid today regardless. Why tack on the pickup requirement rather than just agreeing to the deal?
It all comes back to agency and that psychological need to save face. Okay. Over the course of a very short conversation, Amit has come down $50 from his original asking price. Even in a collaborative setting, nobody wants to feel like they just rolled over and granted every single request the other party made.
It feels like a surrender if you don't get the last word.
Right. By adding his own small, highly achievable condition, Amit reclaims a tiny piece of control at the finish line.
He gets to feel like the final agreement was a mutual compromise.
He didn't just accept Rahul's terms, he accepted the terms and imposed a requirement of his own.
He manufactures a small victory for himself. And Rahul, being a smart negotiator, immediately grants that victory. The transcript ends with Rahul saying, "Deal, I'll come by this evening." The loop is closed, the transaction is finalized, and both parties walk away feeling satisfied.
It is a phenomenal demonstration of how treating a negotiation like a collaborative problem-solving exercise yields better financial results than treating it like a battle.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and distill this microscopic analysis into actionable mechanics, for you, the listener, how do you apply this the next time you find yourself staring at an intimidating asking price?
Well, the first step is entirely internal. You have to suppress that combative instinct.
Take a breath before typing.
Exactly. When you reach out, avoid making immediate demands. Ask for justification instead. Use genuine curiosity to drop a velvet anchor, introducing a lower market number without attacking the seller's valuation.
Right. Second, when it's time to move the price, do not state your limits as a demand. Frame them as a constraint.
Yes, blame the budget.
Remove your ego by blaming your budget And always remember to validate the seller's defense. You have to buy the psychological goodwill with agreement before you spend it on a discount.
And finally, when you are trying to bridge that final gap, remember that money is not the only lever you can pull.
Time is money.
Time, convenience, and the reduction of cognitive load are highly valuable currencies. Attach urgency to your final offer to make the certainty of the deal more appealing than the marginal dollars they're holding out for.
It really changes the entire paradigm of buying and selling. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought experiment.
Oh, I love these.
We spent this entire time breaking down the effectiveness of Rahul's strategy. But I want you to imagine an alternate reality for this exact same transaction.
Okay.
Think back to the very first exchange. Amit lists a laptop at $800. What if Rahul had bypassed the curiosity, ignored the justification, and simply aggressively demanded the $700 price tag in his very first message?
Just give it to me for $700.
Yeah, what if he just typed 700, take it or leave it?
Oh, wow.
Would Amit have bothered to engage with a counteroffer? Would he have taken the time to explain the upgraded RAM and the warranty?
Probably not.
Or would the endowment effect and his own ego have flared up so intensely that he would have simply deleted the message and blocked the buyer?
That's a very real possibility.
Think about how the sheer politeness of a velvet anchor might actually dictate whether a potential deal survives its first 5 seconds. Are you unknowingly killing deals before they even begin, simply because of the blunt force of your opening number?
It's something we're all probably guilty of.
Something to carefully consider the next time you're about to hit send on an offer. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the hidden behavioral mechanics of the deal. We will catch you next time.